Welcome to Innovating Education, the podcast where we engage with forward thinking educators, policymakers, and change makers who are reimagining education through innovative practices and fresh perspectives. I'm your host, Dr. Riley Williams, and today I'm thrilled to introduce you to a guest whose passion for education is both genuine and inspiring, Cheri Dixon. Cheri is a 3-time best-selling author, including the acclaimed The Heroes in Our Classroom. She's also founder of Cheri Dixon Consulting, LLC, where she empowers leaders, educators, and women to discover their full potential. With 28 years of experience in public education as a teacher, instructional specialist, principal, and turnaround consultant, Cheri now focuses on helping others navigate the complexities of education with clarity, confidence, and balance. Her mission is to equip educators with the tools and strategies they need to stay motivated, resilient, and impactful for years to come. Cheri, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here today.
Your book, The Heroes in Our Classrooms, shares powerful, real life stories that capture the heart of what it means to be an educator. It's such a genuine tribute to the teachers who show up every day and make a difference. What inspired you to write this book, and why did you feel that it was important to give voices to these stories?
So, I'd always been dabbling in writing ever since I was a young child. If you've followed me or read any of my information, teachers were a really big part of my world. And because of them, I knew I would be a teacher one day. And I knew that when I was 6 years old. So, it made sense to always promote the profession, so to speak. And as teachers, we're not always in professions where we think we're glamorous and wonderful and all of the things. As a matter of fact, I know my daughter herself so many times would just say, Mom, I'm never going to be a teacher. I'm going to be an actress. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be all of these great glamorous jobs. And she's a teacher. So I think that we get that bad rap sometimes. But as I went through my years in education, as a teacher and then moving into administration, I also kept having this feeling that I wanted to get into the writing world. And I started writing with a company, She Rises Studios. And my first book was an anthology where I only had to write one chapter. And I thought, hey, what a better way to get started because I don't have to be responsible for the entire book. And as I was talking with my team leaders one afternoon about the book coming out, one of my teachers said, oh, I would love to be able to have an opportunity like that. And at that moment, it just came to me. I thought, I can promote my people. I can share out these great things that people are doing in the world of education. And I can do it in a way that they also can start building a name for themselves. And I'm always about empowering others. So this project came into my heart. Well, it just so happened that because the first book I did with She Rises Studios went so well, I started doing a talk show with them and it went well. I got a very good deal on a new book. And I thought, okay, this is the opportunity. So I hand selected my authors. I reached out to 10 people. 7 of them took the step forward and said yes. And each of these teachers in the book, they mean something to me. They're near and dear to my heart. As a matter of fact, one of them was my 8th grade language arts teacher. These are people who helped shape who I became as I was moving through education. Their stories are powerful and they're so proud of the work that they did. And that's what this is all about. Because our bottom line was, let's put these stories out there and help encourage those out there who are working hard every day to keep going on those hard days and to know that we do appreciate the work that you do.
The title itself immediately evokes such a strong sense of purpose. Is there a particular story from the book that really sticks with you, one that captures the heart of what makes teachers impactful?
Of course, I think they're all amazing. In my chapter, which is the first chapter, I do write about how Rita Pearson, I'm sure many of you out there know who she is or was, had such an impact on me when I got to hear her speak like 2 years into my teaching career. the way each author brings their perspective to it and share their stories, because they share the funny stories, the hard stories, they make you laugh, they make you cry. One of my authors shares how she was on the spectrum and she didn't really want that out for people. I was her principal and I did not know that. She did not share. I mean, I kind of knew, right? But I didn't know that formally. And that's what she shares about in her chapter, how because of her experiences, she now works with students just like her. Another one of them shared how, and she brings a lot of humor to the table all the time. She was a principal with me years back, and my daughter's very first principal when she became a teacher, and how she had this very challenging ADHD child who the family wasn't completely on board with the support, but the way she continued to care and push and support the child and the family, he went on to do amazing things in life. So I think there is not one that stands out amongst the others, but they all are very heartfelt and real, and really why we do keep going when it's not that profession where we're going to be making millions of dollars.
What message do you hope educators walk away with after reading your book?
I think it's the same message that I continue to share. I just had my TEDx talk released this past week, and the title of that one was Teaching is Hard Because It Matters. And that's the main message in all of this. I believe that every profession has its challenges. It doesn't matter what you're doing. I was the first teacher in my family. Of course, now my daughter is a teacher. We don't have any other educators in our family, but we have people who've worked in the pharmaceutical world, people who've worked in the manufacturing world. My sister is a team leader for her company, which is in the student loan business. My brother works on a chicken farm up in Iowa. All of us have our challenges and hurdles in our positions. Teaching is no different. I think with social media and the fact that everything is in your face right now, we see the hard stories. We don't necessarily see the stories where you go, oh my gosh, I made a difference for that child. Or because of me, this school is going to have a different kind of reputation. Or even the mere fact of that family knows that I care about their child. And even though their child may be having difficulty, somebody is out there saying, it's okay. It doesn't mean that you're a good or a bad person. It just means we have to take a different path. And with the work that we did with the book, and then the conversations, teachers need to know you can go try to find another profession, but you're still going to have challenges. So if you are in it with your heart and you want to make a difference on the world, public education, private education in general, will absolutely do that for you. And we really wanted to make sure that was what we got out to the world.
That's amazing.
Thank you. It's funny because I had a really hard first year. I had moved from a small town in Iowa. We didn't even have a freeway. You had to drive 10 minutes, 15 minutes to get to an interstate, what we called them up there. And I moved to Houston, Texas, the fourth largest city in the world. And let me just tell you, I was a fish out of water for sure. And I knew I wanted to teach. The climate was different, the culture was different, the communities were different. We were away from family. We were young, my ex husband and I, with our young daughter who was starting kindergarten that year. We didn't know what we were doing, and we didn't have a clue as to where our path was going to take us. It was a tough year. And in my mind, I quit every single day. And then I started to see my kids get things, understand things. I started to realize that I was causing the problem because I was wallowing in my struggle, right? And I needed to be better. And I needed to be better because I was working with somebody's child. And it was that moment where I embraced the mantra, and this is in everything that I always do. If it's not good enough for my own child, it's not good enough for anybody else's child. And when I became a principal, so if it wasn't good enough for my child as a teacher, it's not good enough for my staff. And I think that we just have to realize this is something that has so much influence in the world. It's amazing. But when you actually realize I have to step up and I have to do my very best, that's when we start to see change. That's where we start to hear people say, I know this is hard, but it matters. And I need to keep going and I need to show up as my best self.
You're an expert in turning around schools and mindsets. You've been a part of some remarkable school turnaround efforts. What are some of the biggest challenges that you see in struggling schools, and how do you go about tackling those?
Again, like I said, we all have hurdles, right? In our careers, our professions, our areas. Schools are no different, and a school is like a business. Our clients and customers, they're just small, they're just little, right? And we have to realize that if you don't have the right systems, processes, and procedures in place, things are going to fall apart really fast. If your people don't enjoy coming to school, it's going to translate into what they do in their classrooms. And it all starts with the leader. I don't think that the leader is so powerful that it's only about the leader, it's about the team as well. But the leader directs everything that's going on. So, those are my three big areas that I always stay focused on. What, as a leader, do I need to do or develop myself in so that I can support and empower, not just get my people to be compliant, lead them through the change process, which is difficult, make sure all the systems, processes, and procedures work and they're clearly communicated and they run succinctly. So if I ever had to step away, I knew things were still going to keep going. And then, of course, the climate and culture piece is so big, especially as I said, change is so hard. If people don't understand it, if they don't buy into your mission and vision, if they don't want to get better, then it just might not be the place for them. And you have to keep your hand on the pulse of that climate and culture always. It's a lot of hard work, but so rewarding. I loved it. I did it with three schools. I'm now working with a school, not in the principal role, but in a leadership position where I'm actually guiding and supporting this newer principal to make sure that we're staying on track with the work that we do as well. I love it. It is exactly who I am. And although I stumbled upon it by accident, it truly became what I was known for.
And you often talk about the importance of mindset during these efforts. What
Mhm.
strategies do you use to help teachers and leaders shift from a mindset of survival to one of growth and success?
People have to feel success because success breeds success. So I always start with, and I have a very specific process, but I always start with going in and just observing, figuring out what is working, what isn't working, because chances are something is working. I've never gone into a situation where everything had to be scrapped and started fresh. I'm sure that's probably out there somewhere. I was just fortunate enough that I didn't have to do that big of a turnaround, but I have had to do some pretty major shifts. And so when you know when something is working, then you can use that as a leverage because people already feel defeated. They already feel stressed and overwhelmed. And why? Here comes one more person. They're going to come in and they think they're going to save the day. And when I first took over my first school, I was only 34 years old, and many of the staff members were older than me. And so here I was, this young blonde coming in to take care of this school, my little high heels and my cute little outfits and my nails done and all of the things. And I had to get them to trust me. And that's part of that first step. And so in doing so, you find the things that work and you talk about those things with people and you ask them why they're working and what's the main thing that they love about those processes and procedures, and you get them involved and you let them have a voice. And then you talk about the hard stuff. You talk about the things that don't work and why they're not working, and getting them to see quickly change can make things so much better. You find those big ticket items that you can have the biggest impact on the quickest, so that they see, oh, wow, my life can be better. And one of those things for me at every one of the schools I was at, of course, it happens with most turnaround schools, was discipline. Once we had a process in place that teachers understood, families understood, students understood, we kept the expectations high, and we only accepted the processes and procedures within that new system. Teachers saw a change so quickly. As a matter of fact, in the last school that I was in, we saw a 42% decrease in office referrals within the first year, because we followed the system. And as soon as teachers felt it was working, they wanted to follow the system more. And I even had, into the second and third year, made my life great, because my teachers were saying, look, you're not following the system. That's why you're struggling. I didn't even have to say the words, because my staff did it for me. And that's when you know you've done some really great work, and you keep those people on board. And then the ones that don't want to get on board, they either get on board or they get out. And it's not, again, not being ugly, but it's just some schools are hard, and it's not for everyone.
I think we should all collectively rename you or give you the nickname Elle Woods of education.
I like that. And that's the thing, too. I'll be honest. I was also known as somebody who pushed the envelope. I pushed boundaries. I did things different. When I work with leaders now, my whole premise is you think with your head, but you lead with your heart, because we've lost that. We're in a world right now where it's ugly, in my opinion. And that's just my opinion. Somebody else might think something different, but we're all about judgment, and we're all about comparison, and we're all about the bottom line, and we're all about the political games and all of the things going on right now. And that's not even to touch upon what people have going on in their personal lives with their own finances and whatnot going on. I did things different, and that didn't always make people happy with me, but I got results. As a matter of fact, in 2017, here in Houston, we went through a big hurricane, Hurricane Harvey, and it was devastating. It wiped out our city. If you know anything about Houston and the history of hurricanes, it was rough. We had been in school for about a week and a half. We got the news that we were going to be home for the next few days for this hurricane that wasn't supposed to be too bad. And we ended up being off for 4 weeks. And when you go into a school and you start a school year, it takes you a minute to get people acclimated back to these are the processes and procedures for the year. We're back from summer break. We're moving forward. We're getting to know you. We had to start that all over again. And as a matter of fact, the state of Texas eventually ended up saying, if your school ends up with failing scores for assessments, you won't be held accountable, because we had 100% of our students homeless that year. 100%. That doesn't happen. That is crazy. However, I remember telling people it's not about hitting the target. It's about growing every kid. Even though we missed this much school, even though we're dealing with families coming in late or not making it to school because they're driving from their hotel across the city, even though we're dealing with all of these hurdles that keep coming at us, and then more and more and more would build up. If we do our job, kids still need to learn and grow. No matter what, they need to grow, or we're not doing our job. And I'll tell you, people pushed back on me on that, because our district level people wanted the scores. They wanted to be the unique one, right? Out there in the world, that we had all these hurdles, but we still persevered and came through. I stayed focused on growth. Everybody else kept focused on, I have to meet this target, I have to meet this target. And at the end, when we got our accountability, we were the highest performing school. And I remember the superintendent sitting down with me for my end of the year meeting, and he said, I never expected this. I don't even know. And we were the lowest performing school, even on good years, right? We were below everybody else. He said, I don't know how you did it. And I said, because I focused on the right thing. I focused on growing children. I wasn't looking at that target at the end. I was looking at what's the next step? What's the next step? And what's the next step? It works, but it means you have to sometimes go against the grain and you have to do things that might be out of the box. But you also have to believe in yourself as a leader and believe in your team. And you only can do that when you've set up those systems, processes, and procedures. You've developed the climate and culture where you can push them and you can do that. And they trust you and you trust them.
You have such a broad view of leadership from all the various roles that you've taken. What is the biggest lesson that you've learned?
It is not about you. It is not about you. It is not about the title. It is not about any of that. You are a servant. When you become a leader, you serve. Sure, you have to make hard decisions and your name's on the bottom line, but you can't do it alone. I'll be honest, there was a year my assistant principal had some health issues going on. She was absent a lot. A lot of my staff was absent that year for different reasons. And I tried to do everything on my own. I kept saying to the district, they'd come to me and they'd be like, what help do you need? No, no, I've got this. I've got this. I had this Wonder Woman syndrome, I call it, that I can fix everything. I can do anything. And I could do everything, but I couldn't do everything well. And I had to learn that lesson. And that's when I finally realized it's about my people. I need to build and grow my people because I'm human. What if I go down, right? I don't get sick often, but what if I did? What if I had to step away? What if something major happened in my family and I needed time away? I needed that school to keep moving forward. And you can only do that when you empower your people. So, my biggest lesson and biggest thing I teach people is you've got to build, grow, engage, and empower your people. And if you can't do that, you're not a leader, you're a manager. And we don't need managers. We need them for some things, right? For checklists and for data and for things like that. But when we need a leader, we need a leader that can step up and do those things.
That's phenomenal. So, what advice would you give to teachers who are considering stepping into leadership roles?
I'm so glad you asked that because here's the thing. My daughter is my whole world, right? I'm going to go off on a little tangent here, but stay with me. As I mentioned, she was in theater growing up. She was so very, very good. She won state awards. She had scholarships to college, all the things. And then she went through this time where, oh, I'm going to go into fashion and I'm going to design fashion. And she had all these pathways. And she'd never wanted to go into education. And when she stepped in, it lit her up. She struggled. She struggled back and forth with different jobs and I don't know what I want to do in life and all of the things. And she walked into that classroom the first day and she came home and she said, Mom, this is what I'm supposed to do. And as her years, she's in her 8th year now, her years have gone by, she quickly went back, got her master's. She has her principal certification. She has now left the classroom. She's an instructional support person for a campus, and she's good at what she does. She's better than me. She's like the Cheri Dixon 2.0, I always say. But we were having a conversation recently about just our journeys through education. And she said, Mom, one thing that I realized is exactly what you've been saying for years. If people don't take care of their people, they're going to struggle and the schools are going to fall apart. And I said, I believe this 100%. And she goes, I know you do. And you're so passionate about it. She said, I just wonder if you're targeting the wrong people. And I said, talk to me about that a little bit. And she said, I wonder if you should go back to your original thought, which I had this thought years ago, where you focus on teachers that want to move into administration and teach them how to do it right. And that's why it's so funny you ask that, because sometimes we get in our position and we think we already know everything. And now we're in it and we can't look weak. We can't look like we're needing help. We have to put on that brave face, right? And many principals, especially, sorry ladies, but female principals, I've been one, right? We think if we show signs of weakness, then we're not going to be regarded as the professional. But if we could target these teachers who start to think maybe administration is for me, and I have some programs for that. And one of the very first things I teach is you have to know why you want to do this. I remember interviewing a teacher years back who was wanting to move into an instructional specialist role, which is the stepping stone before a school administrator here in the districts that I worked in. And I said, "So tell me why you want this position." Because she was getting great results in her classroom. She was doing great things for kids. And she seemed to love the work that she was doing. And she shocked me when she said, "I don't want to grade papers anymore. And I'm tired of writing lesson plans." And we finished the interview because there was a team with me and I didn't want to call her out in front of everyone. But I pulled her aside afterward and I said, "I'm not going to put you in this position. And let me tell you why. You're not ready. You're not doing this for the right reason." And of course, she ended up leaving me that year. And I had to take the hit on that. But you got to be in there for the right reason. If you think it's going to be easier, it's not. If you think that title is going to give you all of this prestige and respect, it's not. You've got to do the work. You do the work to get the position, and then you got to do the work to stay successful in the position. And people don't realize that. So, for those of you out there thinking administration, I always say it was the hardest job I ever loved, but you got to be ready to put in the work. You really do.
That's interesting. Just from my life experience, I went from boots on the ground to an area leader, and then I became the national program manager. And when I think about when I was happiest, it was actually in that middle position. I was good at all three, but where I was happy, where I was, I think a lot of people have this, I have to be the best, I have to have this top credential. And it's just not true. You should be where you're happiest.
Yeah, and that's so true. I mean, because that's another big piece of this. If you don't love it, people are going to know. And then things are going to be bad. I was talking to a teacher not long ago, and she said, I was talking to my principal and I was telling her, I'm thinking about moving into administration. And my principal looked at me and said, "Don't. I hate this job." And I said to the teacher, I said, "I'm really sorry that you had that experience." I said, "I would get other opinions before you make a decision and do what's right for you." But on the inside, I was thinking, shame on you, principal, because if you do hate it, then do something about it. But don't tell people who are aspiring to go on and do big things how awful it is. Sure, we should be real, but we also have to give people, some of them might be like you and me, where we thrive on those challenges. We love leading people and seeing what they can do and making things a better place. Not everybody is about that, and that's okay. But, I don't think especially for people who are hungry and want more, but you're right. We have to love the job. If not, things are going to fall apart.
Well, you've been in education long enough to witness shifts in how we teach, learn, and lead. What do you see as the most promising innovations in education right now?
I think, let me start with this. I think we're going to go through a really, really, really hard time in the next couple of years. Um, I've been through this before. We've had upper level lawmakers, policymakers, whatever you want to call them, make some really hard decisions in education. And many times they think they're doing the right thing, right? they're just not boots on the ground, like you said. And when that happens, people panic. And so I think people are panicking a lot right now. I also think that we're going through a very challenging time. I know here in Texas for sure, um, getting teachers, certified teachers, high quality teachers in these classrooms. I work in a charter school right now by choice, and there are two certified teachers in that charter school. It's not a big charter, so there's probably about 25 staff members total, or 30 maybe. I'm one of the two certified people. And it's interesting because it brings a whole different set of challenges. But this is what we're having to do because of this teacher shortage. So, knowing that these things are happening, I think that there are some very big promising things out there. I think people who are like me, who've had some really great experiences, are saying, okay, how else can I help? How else can I make a difference? I think that state entities are going to start doing something that Texas is doing and offering alternative pathways to get teachers certified and opening the door to more opportunity for that. I am actually working on developing my own project. It's a 2 year process, so it's pretty intense, but I'm working on submitting to the state by September 1st my own alternative certification program for teachers, because we need good programs, and we need programs that really prepare our teachers, not just teach them how to look at test data and not just teach them how to utilize resources that the state mandates that we have to use. We have to teach them to care and all of the things. But I do think that when we get over this hurdle, we'll find that we're going to have the people that are supposed to be in it are staying in it and are here doing the hard work, because we learned in COVID for sure robots can't do this work for us. Zooming is great for this purpose or for networking. And when we have to use it, it's a great backup alternative, but it's not a great way to teach children. It's that face to face interaction, really working through the conceptual understandings. I think that if we stay in it through this storm, and stay strong, we're going to see the sunshine on the other side. And I can say that because, again, I've been through this so many times. I cannot even tell you how many times I've heard these shifts from let's do whole language, let's do phonics base, let's do this base, let's do that base over these years. But it all comes back down to when you're in it for the right reason and you know it's going to be hard, but you're going to keep pushing forward, we're going to see some great things.
What do you think that schools and districts should prioritize to best support their educators?
Whew, that's a hard one.
We're getting deep, right?
We are getting deep. Wow. Okay. Let's go with this. I think we have to, number one, let's just not put a warm body in a position. I think you have to hire the right people. And I've been seeing a lot on LinkedIn lately, just because I've started to use that platform a little bit more. People that are out looking for jobs, they'll say things like, just because I don't have experience doesn't mean I'm not the right person. And I wholeheartedly believe that. I will take a newbie over an experienced veteran teacher if they're in it for the right reason, as I've been saying. So I think we have to not panic. That's number one. And I think we have to, in this not panic mode, let's just not fill our classrooms with warm bodies, because when a student has a subpar teacher for 1 year, typically they can bounce back if they have an excellent teacher the next. But if they have a subpar teacher for 2 years, chances are they're going to struggle for the rest of their school career. And we don't need that anymore. The other thing I think we have to remember is it's all about you as the leader, but it's not about you as the leader. You set the tone. You determine the climate and culture. You determine the systems, processes, and procedures. You determine how your people are going to feel. We did a book study not too long ago with Principal Khalife, and I read his book. And one thing that stuck with me is at the end of the day, as you're walking out to your car to go home, turn around and look at your school and ask yourself, did you make a difference today? And if you can't say that you made a difference, you need to sit and reflect and figure out, how am I going to make a better difference tomorrow? And I find that to be so true, because we can't just think that we can just not be prepared and we just can wing it and it's all going to figure itself out. And then finally, funding is going to be really tough for the next couple of years. I think we have to prioritize what's most important, what needs our attention, because when we keep the main thing, then we'll get results. We will, and we'll get through this. So when you're looking at your funding, it might be one of those years where you're on a budget, a real budget. Of course, we all get budgets, but you're on a real budget where maybe you're on a diet and you're cutting some extra fun things out of your life. We have to do that at schools too. And I'll tell you, most schools, unless you're somebody that's pretty new to the scene, I think that most schools have enough materials, enough manipulatives, enough resources. I think now it's, let's get the right people. Let's spend our money the right way. And then I will finish that with just saying, we have to walk in with the mindset that we're going to strive for excellence every day. Because not only do we have funding issues and mindset issues and teacher shortages, and students have more needs than ever, we are also in competition. I worked in the public ed world for 28 of my years, and this is my 29th year. And I chose to go to a charter so I could learn the system, because I saw what was happening here in Texas for sure with vouchers and what that could bring in the future. And I know it's not just Texas, it's happening everywhere. So we have to have that competitive edge. Um, there have never been years prior where I had to stand at the front door and say, come to us because we're the best. Come to us because I have the best staff. Come to us because we're going to care about your kids. But I don't know if I want to say that that's never going to happen. Why come to us might be the question people start to ask. And we have to be prepared for that. And the best way we can do that is, if you show up every day striving for excellence, your work is going to speak for itself.
That's deep. That is deep.
Hey, we wanted to go deep. We went there, right? Now, if only I were in charge of all the world of education.
let's let's have some fun. All right.
Sounds great.
All right. We're going to do rapid fire questions, and you say the first thing that comes to mind, okay?
All right, sounds good.
A book every educator should read, including your own.
The heroes in our classrooms.
Yes. Yes. I was hoping you would say that. Coffee or tea during a busy school day?
Coffee.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
Do your best work because you don't have time to do it over again. And that came from my grandpa.
Your go-to self-care practice?
I'm a runner. I get out on the road. I put all the stress out on the first half of the run, and I breathe in all the fresh and positivity on the second half.
One app or tool you think every teacher should use?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think every teacher should have some kind of communication app, because it just makes those lines of communication so much easier. And we're dealing with people who don't want to get on a phone anymore. And so I always use GroupMe, but I know there's so many out there.
Favorite motivational quote?
She believed she could, so she did.
The best part of being an educator?
The moment that a student or a teacher has the light bulb turn on, and you just go, wow, I had an impact on that.
Cheri, this has been just an incredible conversation. I've loved every minute of it.
Oh, thank you. This has been so much fun. I love talking about these things. I'm such a nerd. I'm going to own that.
I think we all are, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
All right. Well, before we wrap up, I have one last question for you. If you could leave our listeners with one thing that you'd like them to remember about their role in education, what would it be?
I think my parting thought would be this. It sounds a little cliche, but people are not going to always remember what you tell them or what you do, but they're always going to remember how you make them feel. Building relationships has to be one of the most important pieces of the work we do. And it doesn't matter what level you're in, it is about people, as I've been saying. I think that if we start teaching with heart, leading with heart, and that doesn't mean you're a pushover. It doesn't mean that everybody gets to do whatever they want, but it means that you think with your heart and you treat people the way you want to be treated. I think the whole world would be a different place. But as teachers, we're held to a different standard. And this is our world, this is our life, right? You're not just a teacher 9 to 5 and then you go home and then you're something else. You're always a teacher, and people are going to regard you that way. So build those relationships. Go out there and leave people feeling better. They had an impact. You had an impact on them.
So, for those listening who want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
I am trying to be everywhere. I'm on Instagram, some, but my main platforms are LinkedIn and Facebook. Or you can email me directly, Cheri Dixon Consulting at gmail.com. Check out my podcasts. I release on Tuesdays one just about being a strong woman. And on Wednesdays, I release leadership lessons, and those are on Apple and Spotify. Go watch the TEDx talk. I'm almost at 100 views. I'm not good at promoting myself. I do have to say that's one of my areas of weakness, but I'm proud of that. Almost 100 views, right? Go listen to it. I'm really proud of that work. I told my daughter, wow, that was me. Those are the best ways. Get the book, The Heroes in Your Classrooms. You can get that on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart, but get out there and get those resources. They're very inexpensive. And yeah, my goal is just to support. So if you need something, let me know and let's talk.
I guarantee you, you're going to have 101 by the end of the day. I am definitely going to watch that. For our listeners and anyone looking to stay inspired, please be sure to check out Cheri Dixon Consulting LLC and join her vibrant Teachers That Sparkle community on Facebook and Instagram. And then, of course, don't miss her book, The Heroes in Our Classrooms, a heartfelt tribute to the everyday impact educators have on their students' lives. Thank you for tuning in to Innovating Education. If today's conversation resonated with you, which I know it did, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It helps us reach more educators with these solution-focused discussions. Until next time, keep innovating education.